Welcome back to this reading vlog of The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Bakker. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 9, Sumna. This is possibly my favorite chapter so far. I think so. And you may be asking yourself if you're reading along with me, or if you're one of those people, those seasoned veterans as I like to call you, that, you know, nothing cool, nothing badass happened in this chapter. There are no rolling heads. There are no crazy sorceress spells, just burning things to the ground. But I still argue this is the best chapter so far. We start off with Esmenet, our harlot, and she is a much more complex character than I was led to believe originally, because Bakker is messing with me, clearly, in this chapter, because when he's presenting her initially, in the very beginning, when she's with this man named Samatus, who is telling her that, you know, it's time to move on. He's found somebody else. And she looks up at him with these doe eyes and nods and says, "You found someone else, someone younger." And she continually plays this role, right? This role. But I didn't see it that way at first. I didn't see it that way. But at the very end of the chapter is when it all comes to light. Because Achamian said, to protect me, to protect yourself, you must play your role. You must play the whore, just like he must play the spy. And so that is one of the greatest things about this chapter, is that in the beginning, you think Esmenet is acting a certain way, and you're kind of disappointed because she seems like a helpless whore, right? Like she's being viewed by all these men. But no, she's more than that. She's being strategic. And in that strategy shows her power. And I've heard a lot of things about how terribly women are treated in this book. And granted, I'm only about 50% in, 43% in actually. And yes, she is a whore. Yes, she has a terrible profession, but it is a profession. She has power over these men, which she notes of later in the chapter, specifically about how their hunger, right? They're slaves to their hunger. But again, it's kind of the time and of the place, and it doesn't bring her down. It never brings her down. She, again, wears it kind of like a badge of honor in a way. But we also find out that Enrao is dead. Well, probably not, but everybody thinks he's dead. And then Achamian has left Sumna a broken man, so he has fled. He has gone on to a pilgrimage, I guess. And we get to meet him a little bit later in the chapter. But what happens next is strange. So when her eyes fluttered open, a figure darkened her door, someone waiting. This is a very strange individual. And he slaps her, hard, noted here. And he comes in, he's asking her to tell him everything about this man, Achamian presumably. But she's constantly reminding herself she's playing her role. You must sell him, barter, be the whore, be compliant, tell the truth over and over and over again, because Achamian told her to do just that, to tell the truth. Not only play the role, play who you are, to protect yourself, to protect him, but tell the truth. So they get down, they do it. She is quite surprised. She is overtaken by pleasure. But the strange thing is, his seed was black. Yes, his seed was black. So what the hell is this guy? What kind of creature is this guy? Presumably has bat wings, because she heard the arid slap of wings receding into the dawn as he leaves. Well, she doesn't really see him leave, she just hears him leave. He also smells of myrrh, apparently. So a really cool scene, interesting development, because in the beginning, you're kind of viewing Esmenet, you're almost disappointed in how she's acting. You're like, this isn't the Esmenet I knew. And then you find out later in the chapter why she's doing it, right? She's playing this role to protect herself, to protect Achamian. And then on top of that, she's approached by a demon man with a black seed. Very short scene, very cool scene, a lot happened in it. So let's move on to the next one. She is fleeing, right? She is in the Ecosium market, feeling curiously alive to the sights and the sounds of her city, coppersmiths hammering, the cry of the one-eyed man proclaiming the curative power of his sulfur products, barking dogs, the insistent begging of a man without legs, and on and on and on. She does this, and it really is evocative, right? It really evokes the sights and the sounds and even the smells of the city she's in. And that's one of the things I really love about Bakker's writing, is the ability to place you in the setting without getting too descriptive. He just rattles on these very specific details that paint this great picture in your mind. But she's walking through this market, she's questioning herself, she's questioning her role, and of course, dreaming of, as she calls him, Achamian. And she finds a young girl and gives her the gold talent. "Here," she said, pressing it into small palms. So like my daughter, the daughter she had lost. And now in the next scene, we are with Achamian. Alone and on muleback, Achamian descended into the valley of Sudica, and he finds these ruins, the ruined fortress temple of Batathent. And here we get a great, yet simple description of this place. The immense truncated walls spilled into gravel. Obviously, the site had been raided over the years for its granite and bright limestone. All that remained of the temple within were rows of massive columns, far too imposing. Achamian supposed to be pulled down and dragged to the coast. It's a really simple description, but I have this great image in my head of this old man kind of wandering through these ruins, He's absolutely alone. There's nobody around, nobody within miles, perhaps. And it's great. It's a great sense of atmosphere. But he lays down to go to sleep, and in his sleep, he dreamed of that day when every child was stillborn, that day when the consult, beaten back to the black ramparts of Golgotha-Rath by the non-men and the ancient Norisai, brought emptiness, absolute and terrible, into the world. Mogfaru, the no-god. In his sleep, Achamian watched glory after glory flicker out through Seswatha's anguished eyes, and he awoke, as he always awoke, a witness to the end of the world. So very haunting nightmare, I guess. And then we find out why he left, right? The mandate had instructed him to travel to Momin and join the Holy War. And now they wanted him to watch the Scarlet Spires again. So we're kind of linking the stories finally. And there's a great reflection here when he's thinking about himself back with Esmenet when he witnessed another man in her bed. So one time when he had returned to the tenement and hadn't found her sitting in her window, he had dared come up to her door, moved by some shameful curiosity. What's she like with the others? Is she the same as she is with me? And he indeed witnesses this. He remembered flinching when she climaxed and thinking, that cry is mine, mine. This is why I love these two characters. They need each other, but they think they shouldn't be together in a way. It's this kind of forbidden love. They're both serving their own roles. On one hand, she's a whore. That's how she makes a living. And so she can't really just be with one man, even though that's what Achamian wants. And so also, Achamian is bound by duty, right? The mandate is sending him to go join the Holy War. So they have this simple life that they want. And I remember that at the very beginning of the book when Achamian was dreaming about a simple life with her, with Enrao kind of as a son or son-like figure. But he also notes that that is not who they are. He is a sorcerer, a spy. She is a whore, and that is who they are. And he notes here, she's just playing the whore. He had tried to remind himself, just like I play the spy. Now this next part, I love what he did with this, and it's gotta be intentional. It's gotta be intentional. So this is how you help a reader process a very complex plot with a lot of moving pieces, with a lot of different places, a lot of different people. If you don't have the print book, you'll see that he sits down. Let me cover my face, maybe that'll help. He sits down, and he starts jotting these notes down. He's like literally figuring out the plot. So he's talking about the Holy War, the Shime, the Sisharim, the Scarlet Spires, the Emperor, the Consult, and Rao, how it all fits together, Mathanet, Proyas, etc., etc., etc. And he's writing these down on this paper, and he's drawing lines between them. And in between those sections, he's kind of explaining his thought processes, like, how does this connect with this? Or how does this connect with who? Vice versa. And then the final scene, again, I love this chapter because it has like a conclusion. It feels like a short story to me. I think you almost, with the exception of all of the naming and all of the talk of events and stuff like that, this to me works as a short story. And that's how I always say chapters should work. They should never feel like they're just these little parts of a larger whole. Obviously they should feel like that too, but it should exist on its own. And I feel like this one does beautifully. Because we find Esmenet again wandering through the streets, and it sounds like she decides to go off and find Achamian. So she is off to see her love, despite the fact that, you know, she is bound to be a whore and he is bound to be a spy or a sorcerer, and how they're not supposed to be together. And that is how you write a chapter, ladies and gentlemen. So we started off where Bakker was messing with me, right? He was messing with me, trying to depict this woman, Esmenet, as a much simpler character than he kind of set her out to be. And in fact, there's a reasoning behind that. There's a reasoning behind that. And she plays into that. However, in the middle of that scene, she is presented with or approached by a strange creature, man thing, that has bat wings of some sort and black seed. And then we have these great quiet moments. It's almost like we're shifting the camera from place to place, and they're almost thinking about the same thing, right? They're thinking about each other, and they're thinking about their roles in the world and all of these plot lines. But in the end, she decides to go out and seek him. And of course, my favorite part, where Bakker is literally, I feel like he had a chalkboard right in front of him, and he's like, all right, here's Mathanet, here's the Holy War, here's the Scarlet Spires. All right, let me draw a line between each of these things so you kind of get what's going on. But it's great because it's processed through a character. It's processed through a character. It is not exposition. It's not exposition because it is processing through the mind of a character. And that makes it, I mean, technically it could be called exposition, but when it's processed through a mind like that, it doesn't feel like it. And that's a great technique, and one that will not bore me in the slightest. So this was a great follow-up to the last chapter. I'm really disappointed there's only 3 chapters in this section because I feel like these are my 2 favorite characters so far. Because everybody else feels like they're just playing their parts in terms of this is who they are. They don't really have lives outside of this. Whereas Achamian and Esmenet feel like they want another life together. but they're bound by their roles. They want to escape their roles, but they just can't. And that is what makes them so great. There's a subplot on top of the main plot that they're involved with. But anyway, this video is probably way too long so far. I'm trying to keep these short, but when I enjoy something, I tend to talk a lot about it. So if you're reading along with me, or if you're remembering this chapter, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And I'm looking forward to getting to the next chapter. So I will see you then.